Hey buddies, Puggy here, coming at you with another Borderlands 3 video. Today we're going to be showcasing Loot the Universe for Nekrotafeyo and all the best places to farm in the area. And for those of you who just want to know what places drop what, I'm going to show this graph here on the screen real quick just to show you every single area and what they have for dedicated loot drops in case you just want that. But stay tuned because we're going to be going through the best places to farm in each one of these locations as opposed to just telling you what drops where. But if you need to know how to unlock the location for the trials, like the trial of Cunning, survival, and everything like that, I'm going to explain it in a few moments here. But before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. You have no idea how much it helps me out. And let's get into it. Let's first talk about the three locations that are actually on Nekrotafeyo itself. First one is going to be Desolation's Edge. Desolation's Edge will have an increased drop rate of heavy weapons and class mods. The best place to farm is going to be right over here on the Malawan encampment over here. It has tons of badasses and enemies, so you can get lots of loot. You want to fast travel to Desolation's Edge, not Desolation's Edge drop pod, because Desolation Edge right here is the closest fast travel station to get to the Malawan Camp. Once you fast travel in, the Malawan encampment is actually right next to the fast travel station after you exit Typhon de Leon's camp. And then you walk up the stairs and then you'll see tons of enemies. And it's a no-brainer by now, but make sure to be equipping a Schluter artifact to increase the amount of legendaries that do drop. Right now on this build, I do not have a Schluter on myself, so the drop rate is not as good as it could possibly be. Of course, there's other methods to increase your legendary drop rates, as having events active, like I have the ghost event active and such. But as we're killing these enemies, you'll notice there's tons and tons of badasses that are spawning, and that allows us to get lots and lots of loot when we kill the enemies, so it's very easy to get lots and lots of loot. You generally want to keep killing the enemies. There's lots of enemies that spawn here, and then as you're done killing those enemies, you want to travel up the stairs over here, and more drop pods will spawn more and more enemies. Once you're done, you can of course save quit to get the enemies to respawn. And if you don't like killing non-named enemies, you could kill General Trant, but General Trant has dedicated loot drops, which means it muddies the loot tables, which means you'll more than likely get some of the same loot to drop over and over, and that's never fun when you're trying to get specific items like heavy weapons and class mods. And I'm just going to show this place on the map one more time just in case you didn't get a good look of it. Next place we're going to be going to is the Ruins. The Ruins has an increased drop rate of assault rifles and artifacts. Where we're going to go is to another Malawan encampment right in the middle of the map. It's actually kind of a decently far trek to get, but let's fast travel in. Once you spawn in, of course you can kill the enemies since it's just a one-way shoot to the Malawan camp that we're going to, so might as well kill some enemies along the way. There's going to be some aliens, and those aliens never have that great of a drop rate, so it's never recommended to kill the aliens in general. But, you know, once you're there, why not? And then same idea for the little animals that spawn down here. You can kill them along the way. Normally there's like little animals that spawn right here, but for some reason they're not spawning. Perhaps because I killed them without save quitting, but normally they spawn all around here with badasses and such. Oh, here we go. Here's some of them. Kill some of these enemies along the way as well, just to get some loot while you're walking all the way there, because it is kind of a far trek. And once you're to the Malawan camp, you want to kill all the enemies in the middle, and then you want to travel to the target of opportunities. There's two bridges along the side. You want to go to the left one, because the one on the right one I don't think spawns a lot of enemies, but the one on the left does spawn a decent amount of enemies. The reason why this place is one of the best places to farm in general in this area is because there's tons and tons of enemies that constantly spawn over and over. Like, as you're killing these enemies, you'll notice that more and more badasses seem to keep spawning out of the doors and stuff. Like, there just seems to be like so many badasses here as opposed to any other area that I've seen, at least in Nekrotafeyo or compared to a trial. So it's definitely one of the better locations to farm in Nekrotafeyo in general. Too bad it only drops assault rifles and artifacts, but you can probably get lots and lots of artifacts here because you can get assault rifles in other places, as we'll discuss in a few moments here. But after you kill all these enemies, you want to go to the bridge all the way over here to the left, like I said. This leads to a target of opportunity. There's going to be drop ships and stuff that spawn more enemies down here as you kill them. So right here's our first drop ship. There's going to be some badasses spawn here and a nice little cluster. And since they're in a nice little cluster, it's easier to kill them with splash damage, which our OPQ system does a really good job at dealing the splash damage. And after we kill that one, a next drop ship will keep going. What I like to do is, while these enemies are spawning, I like to keep backpedaling to walk towards the target of opportunity, so I'm not wasting any time as I'm killing these enemies. because once you get to target opportunity, you could kill them. Once again, it's a named enemies like I was saying with General Trant, so they do have dedicated loot tables, which means that they'll have more of a high chance of dropping those dedicated loot drops. So I wouldn't actually recommend killing these guys when you're going through the area unless you want their particular dedicated loot drops, because they're not going to be dropping the general assault rifles and artifacts for the most part compared to the regular unnamed enemies. So skip those guys if you're looking for those particular types of gear. Next, we're going to be going to the Pyre of Stars. Now, the Pyre of Stars has an increased drop rate of SMGs. Now, this whole place is just really one big corridor, like one path. There's no branching paths or anything. So it's actually really straightforward because of that. There's no like special location that drops like really good loot. Of course, there's going to be certain areas in this part of the map that do drop more loot because certain enemies have better drop chances compared to others, but since it's one big corridor, you kind of want to just keep going down and killing all the enemies as you walk around. This is essentially really good, this is especially good on console, because then you don't have to worry about reload times and stuff as much, because you're generally going to be going along a long path to kill all the enemies. And there's not much else to talk about this particular area, so let's move on to the next area. Now, the next areas are all going to be trials. I want to real quick tell you how to get each one of these trials. There's going to be a total of 6, so I'm going to show you real quick. Now, the first trial you can get is going to be on the planet Pandora. It's going to be right on Devil's Razor, so you want to travel to Devil's Razor here. Once you get to Devil's Razor, you'll see on the north side of the map, right here, there's an exclamation point. If you haven't unlocked it, it's for the Trial of Survival. Basically, you're going to find these exclamation points on each side of the map, and then you basically just travel to it. Once you fast travel in, you're going to go all the way over to this pedestal. Now, this pedestal has like a little red planet on it, but basically you just want to inspect it like you normally would with any other quest and accept the quest. Once there, you can go to Sanctuary to travel to each individual trial, but I'm going to show you where all the other trials are now that we finished with that one. Now, the next trial is also going to be on Pandora. It's going to be in the Splinterlands, and the trial of Cunning is actually going to be right in the middle of the map, right here as I'm pointing right now. You basically want to fast travel to the Chop Shop because that's the closest one to it. Once you're there, it's same idea as last one. You go up to the pedestal and then inspect it, and then you have the trial there. Now, the next trial is going to be on Promethea. It's going to be on Meridian Outskirts. It's actually right next to the drop pod for Meridian Outskirts, so it's going to be on the bottom left of the map here. Right here, I'm pointing to the exclamation point on the bottom left of the map. That's where you want to travel. Once there, you just accept the quest, and then let's move on to the next one, which is going to be actually on Nekrotafeyo here. It's going to be on Desolation's Edge at the bottom left of the map. You'll see this exclamation point. Once there, you want to travel all the way over there. It's not too much of a travel. It's only about a 15-minute drive. Once you get out of Typhon de Leon's camp, you want to exit your vehicle and then travel up the stairs right over here. And once again, you want to just accept the quest from the pedestal. Now, the final two are going to be on Eden 6. The first one is going to be on Floodmoor Basin. I said it right this time. Be proud of me. It's going to be near the bottom of the map, right down here on this exclamation point that I'm pointing to right now. Once again, fast travel there. I would recommend fast traveling to the Naughty Peak, because once you get to the Naughty Peak, you can actually just jump off of the tree trunk over here, and then you'll just be a few seconds away from the actual quest. And then the final one is going to be on the Jacob's Estates. Going to be on the bottom left of the map. There's a lot of bottom lefts on this, now that I think about it, but it's on the bottom left of the map, right on this exclamation point. Now, this exclamation point makes it seem like it's closer than it actually is. Where you want to go is actually going to be near the manor, and then you want to travel from this area all the way down to here, because if you travel the fastest route to get to the exclamation point, which would be right here, you would actually see a cliff that you can't actually vault to. So you want to go outside the manor and then walk all the way around to get to the actual pedestal. And once you have them all, you want to travel to Sanctuary, to the Bridge of Sanctuary, so you can actually navigate to each particular trial. You're going to have to navigate to each one and then use a drop pod near where Ellie is. So there's no way to just unlock each and every single one to fast travel unless you want to navigate to each one, which you're going to have to do if you haven't unlocked them, and then go into each corresponding drop pod, which is no problem because you'll probably be wanting to farm one particular one. Now, the first trial is a trial of Cunning, which is at Ghost Light Beacon. Ghostlight Beacon has an increased drop rate of pistols. All the trials are pretty straightforward. They're basically slaughter shafts that you're forced to go one way, so you have to keep going down the corridor until you hit the final boss. The enemies that spawn in this particular trial are going to be bandits. Each trial has tons and tons of badasses that spawn and good amount of enemy spawn rate in general, so you don't have to worry about not being able to farm a particular type of loot that you're trying to go for, because in general all the trials have really good enemies placement and they're very clumped up and clustered, so you can kill a lot of them very quickly. Now at the end of each trial there's going to be a boss. Now the bosses in general are pretty easy, I would say. They're, for the most part, I would say like kind of like a cakewalk. They're nothing compared to the true trial that we had to endure when that event was happening, but they drop decent amount of loot. Of course they have dedicated drop rates, but it's fine. And at the end of each trial there's going to be a chest that has decent amount of drops, and these chests will have an increased drop rate of legendaries if you have the Sluter effect activated. So remember to kill the boss and immediately run over to chest so you can open it with Sluter increased legendary drop rate. Now the next trial is going to be Trial of Survival, which is at the Gradient of Dawn. Now Gradient of Dawn has increased drop rate of shotguns. The enemies that drop here are going to be primarily animals, so it's pretty easy to kill these guys in general with any particular build, especially a drone build, because then they can't shoot them out of the sky, which is what I was trying to do earlier, but all my drones are being shot out of the sky because of the guns that the bandits have. The final boss that spawns here is going to be the Skag of Survival. Now the Skag of Survival can spawn with different elemental immunities, so you do got to make sure that you have different elements in this fight, because if you only have one particular element, there's a chance that he spawns with the element that you're using and then he's unkillable. But just like that, we were lucky he didn't have the element that we were using, and we can get to the chest very easily. The next trial is going to be at the Precipice Anchor. This is the Trial of Discipline. This has an increased drop rate of SMGs and grenades. The primary enemies that are going to be spawning here are going to be Malawan enemies. As you probably noticed by now, each trial has certain enemy types that you have to overcome, so it really gives you a different variety of characters. Of course, that's very fun. That's also very lame if you don't like Malawan enemies and you're forced to have to kill them for the SMGs and grenades, but hey, you know, really not that big of a deal. The boss that spawns here is going to be a giant mecha. He's very easy in my opinion. He doesn't have any attacks that are generally that hard to dodge or that damaging. Of course, he can one-shot you if he gets lucky. The only terrible part is that he is pretty tanky because of the fact that he has armor, but otherwise, he's actually a pretty easy boss to take care of. Next proving ground is going to be at the Hall Obsidian. It's the Trial of Supremacy. This has an increased drop rate of assault rifles. The enemies that spawn here are going to be primarily Malawan again. So if you don't like Malawan, so sorry that there's two trials that have them. And there's also going to be aliens as well, so that's very cool, because this is one of the few trials that actually has multiple enemy types, which I think is pretty cool and should be in a lot of different places. Here is going to be a big guardian by the name of Sierra. He is actually not that hard to kill. Like all the other bosses, they're generally pretty easy. This one I would think is actually one of the easiest ones to kill. As you saw right there, I killed him faster than any other character. The next trial is going to be at Sky Down Hole Pit. I think that's how it's pronounced. It is the Trial of Fervor. This place will have an increased drop rate of snipers and shields. The primary enemy types are going to be bandits, which is my favorite enemy type. The final boss here is going to be the Hag of Favor. The Hag of Favor, or Fervor, is how it's pronounced, oops. But Fervor is actually a pretty tanky boss, I should say. He's one of the more tanky ones. Once again, probably because he has armor. He's probably tanky because of that. But otherwise, he's pretty easy. You can kill him in a few shots if you have a good build, just like that. And we got a loot ghost. Hold on, let me see if we get anything cool from this. Ah, we got a legendary, yeah. Okay. Now that that's trial done, let's get to the final trial, which is the Trial of Instinct. The Trial of Instinct is the final trial down here, which is Wayward Tether. It has an increased drop rate of heavy weapons. The primary enemies that spawn here are going to be the Jabbers. Once again, this is primarily animals, so it's very easy to do a drone build if you have something like that, like Messy Breakup Pet, or even just using OPQ system to spawn lots and lots of drones. As you continue down the hall, you'll see Grogs start to spawn spawn the little dino dudes. So generally this is like a lot of animals, that you did not see on the previous trials, or primarily the enemies that spawn here, stuff you would see on Eden 6. So it's like stuff that you would see on Eden 6 generally, more than likely to correspond with the map that you found it on, which was Eden 6 to unlock this map. The enemy that spawns here is going to be a giant dinosaur, the Tyrant of Instinct. Once again, generally an easy enemy because he's a flesh enemy. You can primarily just use any incendiary weapon and kill him very, very easily. Just like so. And once you're done, you remember to loot the chests. And that's all the areas we have on Nekrotafeyo. There's lots of legendaries that you can get in this particular event because Nekrotafeyo has all these trials. All the trials have tons and tons of good loot. There isn't a single trial, unfortunately, that gives class mods or artifacts, which is a missed opportunity. If there was class mods or artifacts in a particular trial, it would be the best farm out of any location, but we don't have that. If you guys found a location that's better at farming than the ones I've listed in this video, don't forget to comment down below. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I hope y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.
Also, check out my Discord, link in the comments and description.
And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat, facing him out with a moxie melt till he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. War in a cave with a torch on a wall, then a window arrangement of porcelain dolls.